Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. So I'm here at the Salt Lake Terminal, just waiting for my Utah voter registration card to come in and my Utah license, because I've been spending so much time out here. I might as well get residency. But now we've come and gone and so we're back here for a little bit. We brought a load out here, and I needed to do a couple of things here at the terminal. And then we got a load that was a great load. It was, although the deadhead was like huge, the deadhead was longer than a lot of loads are in their entirety. But I look at deadhead miles the way I look at any miles. It's just, I got to, do them, and do I get paid for them? How do I get paid for them? So we were going to deadhead over to Salinas, California, and pick up a load of strawberries. Well, we ended up doing that, but that load was supposed to deliver on Monday in Pennsylvania, Pottsville. But I reminded my fleet manager that my trainee needed to be dropped off in Las Vegas on Tuesday. So unless she was going to fly back, that wasn't going to work. And not because she needs to be in Vegas, but because I need to do like some, not home time, but Terry time in Iowa. At the end of next week, over Memorial Day weekend. And so my son graduated college, and we're just moving him to his new home, and so he can be ready to start his new job in early June. So, and we're just kind of having family get together and stuff. So my fleet manager said, hey, you guys can just bring that load back to Salt Lake. So we just bombed it over there, picked the stuff up, came right back, dropped it yesterday. We had a load that we picked up this morning that delivers down in Southern Cal early Monday morning. So we just came back here to the terminal. We're kind of vegging. I really needed to catch up on some sleep. I was just so exhausted. And just because of the way the schedule works, I would get a few hours of sleep, but then we'd be somewhere where I felt like I wanted to be in the right seat while my trainee was doing something, whether it was getting to a shipper, I want to help with backing and stuff like that. So it was and then I started feeling like I was getting a cold. So today and actually yesterday for quite a while, I just kind of did a Rip Van Winkle. So feeling better, ready to get back on the road, and we'll get out of here tomorrow sometime in the evening. Just kind of do a overnight drive down to Southern Cal. So somebody asked me, since we're talking about being in Utah, somebody asked me about why Utah is called the Beehive State. And here, I'll throw up one of their road signs that you've probably seen, and maybe you never really realized that it was a beehive, but take a look. So, as you may know, or may not know, in the late 1840s, Brigham Young led a group of Mormon pioneers out here to Utah, and specifically to the Salt Lake Valley. And then over the years, lots more Mormons came out here, and the Mormon Church, the Latter-day Saint Church, brought people out here even from overseas. Like they basically populated in many ways and settled Utah. And by the way, the Mormons also settled Las Vegas, San Bernardino, California, other places all over the West, and including south of the border. There are still colonies south of the border in Mexico that were settled by Mormon pioneers years ago, and Mormons live down there, and they're Mexicans, and but most of them are like, East or Western European looking, people with, fair complexions who just are fluent in Spanish and are Mexican citizens. But that's kind of how they got there. But anyway, the idea of the Beehive is that, the Mormon Church has always been big on work, and in particular work as a community. And so a beehive is kind of an embodiment of that. It's a team effort. All the bees, all the worker bees. There's all sorts of little things. Busy as a bee, worker bee. The bees work together for their community. They work together to build a hive, and they're always busy. They're always doing something, right? They're buzzing around, taking a break every little bit to eat some honey. Then they go back to work, right? Eat some honey, work some more, and everybody's working collectively to accomplish goals that benefit everybody. And so that's where the beehive state came from. The idea that we're all in this together. Everybody's going to pull their weight. Everybody's going to work, and we're all going to try to, get stuff done. And, the idea that everybody has strengths, everybody has abilities to do things. You still see this, the LDS Church up until way into the 20th century, church members, local church members, wherever they were, would take part in building their own chapels. Even if you didn't know how to swing a hammer, there was something you could do. You could carry drywall, or you could, you could paint, you could help in some way. And so a lot of members, they would do some serious heavy lifting to build their own chapels. Now that's no longer the case. Also, the members would have to kick in money, extra money, beyond their tithing and stuff, just to help build the chapel. So there was a sense of community, and also it created this sense of ownership, right? Like if a big organization gives you a building, you might not take as good a care of it as if you helped build the building. You're more invested in it, and you still see that, like in Pennsylvania. I would always see Mennonites throwing up a barn, like everybody just shows up, and they just start swinging hammers and putting up, beams and joists and framing, and stuff gets done quickly. The Amish, same thing. And all of these religious denominations, they're basing this on collectivism and the idea that everybody must contribute to the good of everybody else, to the good of the whole. And it is kind of a refreshing thing, because it's an example of selflessness, right? Like some guy's not, like saying, oh, well, why do I need to work on this guy's barn, or why do I need to, help this guy? And, it's more like they follow whatever their church leaders say, I guess, and they just kind of, everybody gets together and helps out. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of refreshing, because I do see lots and lots of selfishness in America these days, and I honestly got to admit that I'm not sure that, given the selfishness I see, that we could do the heavy lifting if, for example, there was another world war. I just, and I look at it in all sorts of things, not even something like the COVID vaccines and COVID stuff, but just in like out in California, people don't want to quit watering their lawns. Everybody together is running out of water, but there are certain people that don't want to quit watering their lawns. I think the state of California is in that too, because I see them watering lawns at like public buildings that there's absolutely no reason to have a lawn. But it's that idea that people don't want to, do something that benefits the collective, and it's kind of disappointing. Anyway, so that's that. But I also wanted to, speaking of disappointing, I read this article in, I think, CDL Life or Freight Waves, where there's a bunch of independent contractors, owner-operators talking about, we're just going to quit driving our trucks because fuel prices are so high. And my response to that is, okay. I mean, it's the free market. And again, talking about being selfish, people were more than happy to point out to me and other people that work at companies like Prime or Stevens or Knight or wherever you work, people that are company drivers, owner operators, or lease operators or whatever. Oh, get your own authority. I make, $6 a mile and I get, 50 cents a mile fuel surcharge. Well, those days are gone. I mean, they might have been only 6 months ago, but they're gone. And there are a lot of people that are like, oh, the government needs to do something about fuel prices. Well, if you only want the government to step in when your ox is getting gored, then, you're selfish, right? Like, there's a lot of things the government could do about a lot of things, but many people in this country, they don't want the government helping anybody unless it's helping them, and when they want the government to help them. So I'm all about the high diesel fuel prices. And if you go out of business because of it, then, maybe you shouldn't have been in this business. You weren't here for the long haul, pun intended. You couldn't, it's like, it's easy to not go hungry when you're at the buffet. But when the buffet is closed, then you got to worry about where your next meal is coming from. And a lot of these guys were living high on the hog. And I still see people driving past me in semi-trucks going over 80 miles an hour. I don't give a crap. First of all, if a load needs to be run that fast, they should have put it on a plane, And this idea that you could just do business as usual, but then complain and just expect the government to fix the fuel prices is ludicrous. And I read one of these operators was like, yeah, so because of the high fuel prices, I took one of my trucks off the road and I have these guys teaming. And I was like, wait a minute. If you drive a truck twice as far as you otherwise would have, and you don't alter anything else, aren't you just going to use twice as much fuel and pay twice as much for fuel on one truck and as you were for two? I mean, there are some savings. Don't get me wrong. There's some savings with teaming because then all the wear and tear is only on one truck. But I just think people, the rising fuel prices were kind of a known commodity. Like, it was going to they were continuing to go up. But all these people were like, oh, somebody besides me will do something about it. So anyway, fuel prices is a great segue to answer this question. Somebody asked me the other day, and I was like, wow, this is a great question. They just said they're interested in trucking, and then they asked this 2-word question: why Prime? Why should this person pick Prime over other carriers? And let me preface this by saying that I have talked about the things that happen, how Prime kind of works versus how other carriers work that I have experience with. But let me say this, everybody has to make their own decision. It's like Harvard might be a good college to go to, but even if somebody can get into Harvard doesn't mean that Harvard's going to be the best choice for them. And it's true with trucking, right? Like, maybe you want a place that has a terminal close to your house. Well, if you live in Minnesota, Prime doesn't really have a terminal close to your house. if you live in San Antonio, Prime doesn't really have a terminal close to your house. So, and maybe that's important to you. So maybe you have to go to another company that has more terminals. Maybe that's important to you. You know, there could be any number of things. Maybe you only want to drive a Peterbilt with 874 lights on it. Well, maybe that means you're going to have to go to Hurricane, you know, because that's what their trucks look like. I mean, it all varies on what your needs are. But let me tell you some of the things, and these are a little bit intangible, but why I think the answer to why Prime. So let's talk about those. Okay, so I took a little break. My wife called me. Had to take that call, you know. So why Prime? And, you know, I've been at some other companies and they had things that I liked. But I feel like Prime kind of brings everything together into one package that really appeals to me. And let me just outline some of that. I mean, trucks are trucks. I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about, oh, I'd rather have, I mean, there's certain things I would like. Certain trucks I would care not to drive, but it's not the overriding factor. And I've talked about some of these things though that matter to me, like the shops. I've worked at 4 carriers. 2 of them had good shops, Prime and GP Transco, and 2 of them had not good shops. And you know, even when it comes to trailer maintenance, like, you know, Prime is really pretty on top of things. Not always, but you know, we're talking about individuals too sometimes. But coming through inbound or outbound, there are just things that get taken care of or get looked at that maybe as a driver we miss, or we just, you know, we don't have all the maintenance records and stuff like that. And so they're really on top of trailer maintenance, which makes your job easier. You know, I had a trailer the other day that we put in the shop, and you know, I said, hey, I'm gonna need it by this point so I can get it out and down the road and get it delivered. And you know, I didn't even say anything about it, but they realized that somebody had put the wrong size landing gear handle on it, and they fixed it. They put the right one on. So when I went to, you know, get rid of that trailer later, I was like, oh, they've changed the handle. That was cool. There are a lot of little things that happen. When it comes to terminals, like Prime doesn't have as many terminals as, say, Knight does. But the terminals they do have are far and away, I mean, I can't imagine there's any trucking company that has better terminals than Prime. Maybe they have terminals as good, but I mean, I can't imagine what would make them better. You know, maybe if they just gave you unlimited free food or whatever, but I'm not even sure that's a good idea for truck drivers. I don't really know. I mean, unlimited free Diet Coke, you know, yeah, maybe, but you know, the Prime terminals are all very nice, and they have a lot of amenities that just don't happen even at companies that have nice terminals. You know, Knight has a lot of nice terminals, but there's no food service. You know, you pull in there at midnight, you're going to be going to a vending machine. You pull in there, you know, on a weekend, odds are you're going to be using a shower, and you're going to have to bring your own towel, but you're going to be using a shower that somebody else has already used and hasn't been cleaned. So you can go in there and wipe it down yourself, or, you know, I remember being like, oh, I want to get a shower. I'd look in each one, you know, there'd be like maybe 4 showers at a place. I'd look in each one, see which one looked the cleanest. So, you know, just little things like every shower at a Prime terminal is cleaned after it's used by one person. They provide the towels. It's a little stuff. I never had a company that provided bunk rooms at its terminals. That's a nice little respite. My trainee, she's in the bunk room, so she doesn't have to be here up in the top bunk while we're just, here hanging out in Salt Lake for a little bit. It's nice to get off the truck and not have to come out of pocket for it. Another thing that I like about Prime is that if you're a lease operator, and I've kind of talked about this, and I said this was a segue earlier, but fuel surcharge and fuel discounts. So that's two distinct things that you need to think about if you're ever thinking about leasing or being an owner operator or affiliating with a company. Some of these companies, I've heard people talk about like what the fuel discounts are through, like a lot of the bigger carriers that they might lease onto. And some of the discounts are like 10 cents, 15 cents. I mean, hell, you could just sign up for some kind of card over there at Love's and I think you can get 14 cents a gallon off. That's chump change, right? I could look right now and I could find discounts that are at or in excess of $1 a gallon off the pump prices. And on top of that, I know every single week exactly what my fuel surcharge is going to be. They send out a message. They say, hey, if you're on pre-Q contracts or Q contracts, here's what the numbers are. And I think last week I was at 55, either 55 or 55.5 cents per mile. That was the fuel surcharge on top of the discounts. My net cost for fuel per mile is in the 9 to 12 cents a mile range, depending on how far I look back. And right on the Prime app, I can see, okay, this is like the most recent, and it just tallies up some miles, and then it'll go back 4 weeks and go back 8 weeks. And those are little things that matter, right? One load we had recently, we ran it from Salinas, California out to Springfield, Ohio, and it was like a super tight schedule. So we drove as fast as we possibly could. Did I concern myself with fuel? No. I was like, look, I'm getting paid a fuel surcharge. I'm getting good discounts. I have a way to search for the best prices, so I don't have to like try to figure out where to go. I can be like, oh, that's a good stop. I mean, yeah, I am figuring it out, but that's a good place to stop. That's an advantage that I don't think people at a lot of companies have. Now, of course, if you're a company driver, it doesn't really matter. But even as a company driver, right, I like the fact that I work for a company that's staying on top of that. That's your biggest variable cost. And so all these owner operators, all these smaller companies, or maybe even big companies that are like, yeah, we're getting killed by fuel prices. Well, I like working for a company that has an organization within it that specifically focused on fuel. They're specifically focused on one of the biggest, variable costs you can possibly have, and that helps keep the company in a better financial condition. And if you're on my side of the ledger, then it helps make you more profitable. Other stuff that I like at Prime, I like road assist. Not every company has a great mechanism to help you out when you have a breakdown. I know one company I was at, they just were really not very good at it. It was like, it almost felt like when you had a flat tire, they were like, hey, do we have anybody in this time zone that will change tires on the side of the road for us? Like, it was like they were in the yellow pages or on searching Google, roadside tire changes for big trucks, and it would take hours and hours to get somebody there. And I know that's part of just the job, but sometimes it felt like you were really out on the limb with them. And there's the other thing that I like about Prime, and maybe this doesn't matter to somebody. Maybe somebody is like super antisocial and this doesn't matter. But and don't get me wrong, I'm a guy who likes his alone time. I'm a guy who likes to be able to just veg and not converse with people or whatever. But I really feel a sense of community here at Prime more than I felt, say, at Night Transportation, which is a big company. There are a lot of really nice people at Night. There are a lot of really good professionals at Night. And I've said this before, all the way up to the C-suite. I mean, I always felt like people would take my calls and would try to help and stuff like that. But on the day-to-day level, I just feel like I see the same mechanics a lot of times. I talk to the same people. It feels like when you go to places, like if you're in the terminals and stuff, that everybody's kind of pulling in the same direction. And, you don't feel that at a lot of trucking companies. A lot of trucking companies, there's a lot of disgruntled employees. And I'm not saying Prime doesn't have them. I mean, every business does. But I really feel like I get a fair amount of support. I'm not saying there aren't times where I'm like, oh, I'd like more support. I'm not saying there aren't people here and there in the system that are less than helpful. But I feel like there is a sense of community. I also feel like there's a fair amount of camaraderie among drivers. And I didn't necessarily feel that at other companies. I actually can say that I have made friends here at Prime, and I'm not saying that I couldn't have been friends with people at other companies. It just seemed different. And if that's not important to you, that's okay. That's just an intangible that I can put my fingers on. And one of the other like why Prime things that is kind of always in the back of my head is, if you decided that you wanted to be a lease operator, or an owner operator, I can't imagine you could find a company to affiliate with that has a better support system for people that want to do that. The Prime, people say, oh, well, you only get 72% of line haul. You only get this, or they keep that, or they do this. I've talked to people who are accountants who look at numbers, and their comment is, there's a lot of value here. You're getting things from them that would be really hard for you to even put together if you weren't very sophisticated. But I just really appreciate the back office that I have at Prime. It makes my job a lot easier. I mean, there are things that drivers at other companies have to concern themselves with that never even come into my mind. And that's a good thing, right? Like, this is part of my job is lower stress, simply because of the organization that Prime has. So, do I make as much money as I might make in raw numbers at other places? Probably not. But guess what? There are tons of things that I never concern myself with that people other places have to worry about. And so I look at it like I've always said, if I spend 10 hours to do something and make X amount of money, that means I'm making more money than if somebody else had to spend 11 hours to make the same amount of money. So people might have more in their checks, but then they have to spend more or just do more, right? Because time is money, that I don't have to. I can tell you that at the end of the last year, calendar year, I just my wife gets my settlement statements. They come to her, and we just forwarded everything to the CPAs. It was like that. It was that easy. And that's a benefit to being at Prime. I like the support. It's not that I couldn't do all this other stuff. I just don't want to. I enjoy driving my truck. I don't really, and I've run businesses before, but it's not my, even though I understand a lot about business and I understand about, the nuts and bolts, so to speak, it's not something I enjoy. It's not my strong suit. I always hired other people anyway. When I had my own firm, I had a bunch of people. I'm like, oh, go to her for that, go to her for that. I mean, I didn't handle it. I was just like, go to court, win the cases, right? That was my job. So that's another advantage. That's another thing to say why Prime, because of the support. And again, it's until you've been someplace else and haven't seen what Prime, haven't seen there what Prime has, it's kind of hard. I feel like a lot of people, like I'll call out my friend Lyle at No Hippie Trucking and Transportation. Lyle's never been at any other company, so he doesn't know how good it is at Prime. I actually think he does, because he talks about it, but he's never been anywhere else. And I feel like there's a lot of people that come to Prime and they get I'll call it, they get primed, right? They get so used to how good it is at Prime that when they go somewhere else, maybe and at first there's this euphoria about, oh man, if I'd have done that run at Prime, I would have only made $7,300, but I made $10,000 here. Well, that's probably true, but it costs more to do it because they don't have the fuel discounts. It costs more to do it because you didn't get the fuel surcharge. And now you cross 4 state lines, you got to keep track of your taxes, or you got to do something. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of brain damage to run a business. It really is. And when you just like to drive, you like to say, oh, here's a load, it looks like pays okay, let me go drive it. I haven't been there before, or I like going there, or whatever. That's part of what I enjoy about Prime. I don't worry about a lot of stuff here. I worry about, hey, I got to make sure I don't put my truck in a ditch, make sure I don't get a speeding ticket. But as long as I show up and work hard, it seems like everything else takes care of itself. And I guess what I would call that is it's peace of mind. And yes, maybe I'm paying something for peace of mind, but it's a business expense. And I don't have to worry, like I have zero concerns about like an IFTA audit. Zero, right? I don't, I just, there's a lot of things I just don't worry a lot about. I can get on my app, get on my phone and be like, oh yeah, this is when I need service, and then I'll just be like, hey, I'm going to a terminal, I pull in the line, bam, it gets done. That's not a thing at a lot of trucking companies. Even when you're a company driver, they'll be like, oh, well, you need to make sure you're at the terminal between 9 and 5 on a weekday. Well, that's costing you money, even as a company driver, because you're just out there in the parking lot sleeping in your truck, and then you're going to hope that some guy that's pissed off at his wife because, she wouldn't let him go out this weekend is going to get on your oil change and not be, texting to his girlfriend, and he's just going to get on that oil change and get you back on the road. I don't have those concerns here. So I don't know if that really answers the question, and I'm always open to answer whatever questions I can. And I hope people understand I'm totally transparent with this, because I don't want to tell somebody, that it is something it isn't, because every once in a while you're going to run into a roadblock at any company and you're going to be like, oh, this is crappy, and I'm irked or whatever. But on balance, I really do think that I've been other places, and I'm not saying the other places were bad, or, well, in some cases they were, but I just feel like I get everything that I need here. Now, and there might be people who are like, oh, well, you're just unable to do this other stuff. And the answer is, I'm not unable to do it. I just don't want to do it. I don't need to do it. I almost feel like, yes, I am making, maybe I'm making less than somebody at one of these other companies, but I don't care, because I know that they're not getting a lot of the stuff that, a lot of the amenities, if you will, that I enjoy about working here, or being affiliated. I don't work for Prime, I work for an independent contractor, but of having this affiliation. So unless something changes appreciably, I just imagine myself, like I was telling my wife, she didn't even know about this, but I passed my 1-year anniversary, I don't know, a few weeks ago. Prime gave me $1,500, put it in an investment account. They didn't, I didn't have to give them anything. All I did was, it was at my anniversary. And, 9 years from now, less than 9 years now, it'll be totally vested, and they will have put money in every year. And who knows? It's like found money. I don't know who else is doing that in this industry. I mean, I'm guessing there's somebody, but maybe not. I don't know. It's like a little benefit. It's a little perk that I didn't ask for. Like I was saying about the $70 last year at Christmas. I didn't expect a Christmas bonus. But it was a nice gesture, and I feel like Prime is trying to take care of drivers and make them feel welcome. And the other thing, and this is kind of an intangible, but the other thing I like about Prime, and especially running reefer here, is Prime is the dominant player in this industry in temperature controlled. I mean, it's not even close. If you look at revenue numbers, the second largest carrier is KLLM, not even close. Like, they don't even have half the revenue that Prime does. That kind of market share, that kind of penetration into the market is a big reason I'm here too. I feel like I'm at a company that, even when things go really, really poorly in the general economy, that there's still going to be work here, and I'm still going to be able to survive. And then when I come out on the other side, I'm going to be even stronger. So anyway, I hope that answers some questions. And I'm happy, like I said, I'm happy to answer people's comments and concerns and talk about this. And is Prime perfect for everybody? No, it's not even perfect for me. But then again, it's a job. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for, sometimes I'm looking for sufficiency, for adequacy, for professionalism. But on balance, most days are pretty good at Prime, and a lot of times when my day doesn't go exactly how I had hoped, it's not because of Prime. It's just, the industry or whatever. And that would have been true no matter whose name was on the door of the truck. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Keep you updated. I'm feeling like I'm going to be really busy this summer, and I'm going to work hard. And then I'm going to take a lot of August. I'm going to be not driving at least a truck. So that's my goal. I'm working so I can take a bunch of time off in August. I'm probably going to take at least like 3 weeks off. So I'm going to push hard here in the rest of May, June, into July, and then enjoy the fruits of my labors in August. So anyway, I will be back with you soon, and I will talk to you later. Bye.